My name is David McCants, and I live in Alabama in a small town called Atmore. And we have plenty of sun here. In the summertime, we have lots of humidity, and so it's very favorable for producing your own solar energy. The reason I decided to go solar, I really believe in conserving the resources that we have on Earth and protecting what we have for our children. We live at a time when we can breathe fairly good, but the air is constantly changing. There are lots of people who have asthma. When you go just a few decades in the past, they didn't have asthma, not as prevalent as they do now. So one of the things I wanted to do is just protect the environment that I live in. And then not only that, it's a religious thing for me. The earth is given to us, and I'm a worshiper of Jehovah, and I believe he gave the earth to man, but actually we're just guests in his household. And so I want to protect the environment in which I live in. Really, I want to reduce my carbon footprint and look out for my children and grandchildren. We want to leave them a place that, if nothing happens soon in our lifetime, we want to leave them something that a place where they can live and thrive. The year I installed the system was actually 2014, and I understood when I installed it that there may have been a couple of small systems around, one up in Frisco City, and a farmer had maybe a couple of panels somewhere, but it was really nowhere close by that I was able to just go and pattern what I was going to do after them. And my desire was to be able to power my whole house. So I went to visit California out in San Diego, and there right off the cliffs, you may know this area where you have pilots that fly off the cliff, right there supporting them, they had little restaurants and things, and they had solar panels. So I got at least a chance to look at how they were set up. I say, oh, nothing to this. And so I used what I saw in order to come home and install mine. I installed these myself, and you may wonder, if you're looking in the background, you see that this is what we would call a ground mount system, rather than me putting it on the roof. And the advantage of having a ground mount system is that the air basically is fairly dirty, if you allow me to say that, and especially being in a farming community, I knew that I would have to clean them quite regularly. So I wouldn't want to have to walk on my roof. You know, you have especially during the hot months of the summer, you could damage your tile and so forth. So I decided to ground mount this system. And here I have a system the size, it's a 12 kilowatt system. And I have it divided into two sections, 20 panels in each section. And each panel puts out the equivalent of 305 watts. And of course, with this size system, you say, well, how is it that you're going to get DC power? Of course, when you collect from the sun, of course, you're collecting DC power. So you say, well, how are you going to invert this to AC? So with the 40 panels on the back side of the panels, well, I have an inverter for each panel. And I think the value of that inverter, it will invert from DC to AC about 300 watts, and maybe more. Keeping in mind, this is 2024, I did it back in 2014, so my mind may be just a little shady about, the values, but basically each panel has its own inverter, and you're changing AC to DC from panel to panel. So you're not worried about if a shadow fall across your array, because with each panel having its own inverter, it makes up for that. Whereas if you were trying to invert a whole array of panels, then you would get the system would have to go down to the drop of the panel that has the lowest voltage. So by having an inverter for each panel, then that avoids that. So, and as we're talking, we have a cloud that just moved over. So, that would drop it, but by each panel having its own inverter, then that's how we do that. Now you may look on the back here, and you're able to see the inverters for each panel. And one panel putting out 300 watts, and then you have an inverter for each panel. And you see for 20 panels, I have 10 in an array. And this section I have 10 also in an array. And I buried the connecting lines to come over to a breaker panel here. And this breaker panel gives you 4 15-amp breakers. And of course, we buried this, and we had a distance from the whole system out here to my house about 100 and maybe 20 feet to the back of the house there. And we buried it. The power company was concerned about the frost line, so we buried it at a depth of 18 inches. And that way we have no trouble with them about the frost line. And I used number 2 grade aluminum cable. That's to eliminate a voltage drop, a difference of potential from the panels out here until you get to my meter, until you get to my meter. I get that the question about, well, how do you learn, to do this? Matter of fact, when I went to the power company and I talked with the power company and told them that what I wanted to do, and they said, well, what company are you going to use to install this? I said, well, I'm going to do it. And then we talked on and talked on. And then later on, they came back and asked me the same question a different way. And so, who's going to be your contractor? I said, well, I'm going to do it. And so, the thing is that to do this is relatively simple. The sun gives you a supply of energy, knocks off electrons here at 305 watts, and all you have is an inverter to change it to AC, something that I can use. I can't use DC. And so it's just like plug and play. It's as simple as that. And the question is whether or not it's code. The work that I'm doing is code, and I can understand the power company's interest, because they want to know when they attach me to their system, whether or not I'm going to burn up, their wires or whatever. So I can understand that. But as I'm saying, it's just as simple as plug and play. And once I have all 4 arrays tied in to one breaker box, we only got 4 15-amp breakers, and into one line. We'll go into the house and tie into the meter box. So that's all to it. I learned how to do things like this. I was a crew chief in the Air Force. I worked on airplanes, but like I say, it doesn't take all of that in order to, to make a system like this. Once you get an idea of having panels as such, and plug and play, well then the only thing you got to do is just worry about whether or not what you're making is compatible with what the electrical company, their system. Now there are some things that you want to know. Well, when it comes to inverters, individual inverters is better than having a whole array, 20 panels tied to one inverter, because shadows and shade and all that, it can just knock out your whole array. And so I prefer the individual inverters. Okay, and one thing that I want to be sure about is that when I got the system, well, what about backfeeding into the line? Power goes out, you got power personnel working down the road, and so you don't want to be backfeeding back through the electrical wires. So that's why I use inverters that it senses whether or not you're getting the feed from the company. If there's no feed coming in, then they shut off. And that's why I had no trouble with the power company, because that was the main thing they asked, is how does this system protect the workers down the road. So no power from the power company, but then it shuts off. A hurricane comes through, knocks the line out, well then it shuts down. It's not providing me any usable electricity. But to make the system useful to me, well then that's why I added on a battery system, and it provides the what is needed to the inverter so that it will keep producing when the grid is down. So the system everywhere else is out, well then I keep getting power because my batteries is telling the system that it's still alive. Of course, I do have a disconnect switch using a Tesla Powerwall system. It disconnects me from the grid and prevents me from backfeeding and harming electrical workers down the road. So here we have 3 Tesla Powerwalls. These are the Generation 2 Powerwalls. They will store 13,000 watts each, which gives me a little more than 39,000 or 39 kilowatts, if you want to say it that way. And what it does, the benefit of having this is when the sun goes down, I may have the largest solar generation, there he is. But when the sun goes down, I'm buying from the power company. So during the daytime, I'm making storing power in the power walls. And my house being roughly about 2,700 square feet, and I have a 5-ton generator. Well, when the sun goes down, I want the level of comfort at night that I had during the day, but I don't want to pay extra for it. So by having the power walls, well, then sun goes down, well, then it generates the power that I need to get from one day to the next. And if I was really wanted to preserve it, you know, maybe turning off some of my 220s like the air conditioner or hot water heater, I probably could get 2 to 3 days of reserve power out of these power walls. In other words, a hurricane come through, knock out the grid, well then I would have lights and whatever power I need to get me by for at least 2 or 3 days. And that's without taking into consideration the sun shining. But many times a hurricane come through, knock out the grid, and when the hurricane is over with, well, generally we have good weather right after the hurricane. So theoretically, I can continue to have the same level of living afterwards as I had before the hurricane. So that's the value of having the power wall. And then too, at night, we're instead of me buying power from the power company, I'm just running off of my batteries. If you take a peep here at the meter, in some states you would have 2 meters, but in the state of Alabama you use 1 meter for this. If you look closely, you would see the dot going from right to left. And what that is showing, this is just 1 meter, but it has 2 functions. Right now, I am selling power back to the power company. My batteries are full, and I'm making more, even though it's overcast, I'm making more power than I'm using. So I sell it back to the power company, and at the end of the month, they send me a check. And so I'd rather for them to pay me than for me to pay them. And if they don't send me a check, I'll turn their power off. But later on, when the ambient light is not as much, and then instead of going from right to left, then normally this would be going from left to right. And if it does that, that means I am buying power from the power company. Now in Alabama, we have some of the cheapest power that you can have in the nation. It costs us, the consumer, 8 cents per kilowatt. But and so they, to my consternation, they only give me 3 cents per kilowatt for what I sell them back. But anyway, it's better than nothing. And if you look at the length of time that I've had this system, I built it in 2014. And so it has long paid for itself. And I don't mind telling you what I paid for it. The panels, me doing the work and installing it myself, it cost $28,000. I'm sorry, $26,000. And but one good thing about that is that if you install solar at your home, the government will give you a 30% tax rebate on the costs. So I got roughly, out of $26,000 it cost me for material and putting it there, I got roughly $8,000 back. So since I did the system back in 2014, it really has paid for itself. The only thing that I was lacking though was that I was still buying power at nighttime. So that's why I did the power. Now, sad to say, Tesla would not sell me the Powerwalls, being a consumer. They would only sell it to an authorized company that they dealt with. So I had to pay to have a company to install and hook up the Powerwall. The cost to me was $28,000. And again, if I'm not mistaken, I think the tax refund on that was like 26%. And so I received from the federal government, and the state also give you a little bit back too. It was about $6,000 or $7,000 on the $28,000. And going like I'm going, whereas the panels have paid for themselves, this right here, because I'm really not saving that much at night, I don't know how long the payback would be. Except there's one caveat here, that very soon I hope to get totally electric cars. And so by me no longer purchasing gasoline, well then the payback for these Powerwalls will be much faster. So it may be, I don't know, I haven't even calculated it, maybe 5, well let's get generous and say 10 years from the time that I bought them, I will have paid back the $20,000 by not purchasing gasoline and by not purchasing electricity at night. And so one other thing that I did, while I was working, I took and connected my barn, and here's the line feed, and it's underground, it goes to my barn. There was a meter that I had from the power company for the barn. Now, it wasn't expensive. I was only paying like $20 a month. But I changed that maybe, 5-6 years ago? And you say $20 a month, you did all that way up, but look at it. $20 a month and times 12. Times 5. So you see, getting rid of that other meter and feeding everything from my home, from a solar panel and Powerwall, within that is a savings. And isn't that what we are all about? Is not only saving, but as I mentioned from the beginning, and now this is what I want to mention to you. From the beginning, I said that why I wanted to get into this. For one thing, I wanted to have a clean environment for my progeny. And in the Bible, at Revelation 11:18, it says that God is going to have a reckoning with people who are destroying the earth. And so by me reducing my carbon footprint, I'm helping to preserve this which has been laid up in trust for us. And so this is one of the main reasons, or this is one of the things that has motivated me to do the things that I do. And of course, along with that, you do get monetary savings. So I hope this has been beneficial, and I hope my little homestead in Alabama here, with plenty of sun, lots of solar panels has been beneficial for you deciding on whether or not you will get solar.